What's up, crew? Welcome back to Libertalia Game Supply. Yesterday I brought Tellarknights to locals, and that's normally not a very notable thing, but I haven't played paper Yu-Gi-Oh! In many years now. Figured it was about time to get back in there. Now if you're wondering why Tellarknights, well, because it's the only deck that I had pretty much everything I wanted to play like on hand for. Didn't really need to pick anything else up, so that was what I had. That's what I played. Now going into it, I figured I was going to make quite a few mistakes. The auto sims that I play with won't let you forget things that you're going to forget about playing with actual cards pretty frequently, so I expected that to be the case, and it'll just take a couple weeks of being back in there and playing to get all that stuff back in my head right. And so even with all the mistakes and misplays, I think it went alright. I ended up going 2-2, didn't get to play the last round because I had to go to work, but I'm going to show you guys the deck list I played, the things I liked and didn't like about it. We can go through the matchups after that if you guys are curious about that at all, and then I'll cover some changes I would make with the deck. Alright, we'll get right into this main deck here. Cover the extra on the side in a moment. So we're playing the triple Lyran. It's at 3. It's the only one at 3 because it's the one that I'm looking to copy off of Caduceus most frequently to get that search for the spell. We got the double Deneb for the search for a Tellarknight. We've got the double Altair to get the Tellarknight back out of the graveyard. This is really good for looping the Deltaros. 2 still seem fine. They're all once per turn, so having multiple is not really worth it ever. We've got 2 Anuk for the Foolish Burial effect. We've got 2 Vega to special summon a Tellarknight out of the hand. And then I've got the 1 Altair, and this actually put in quite a bit of work just because you can easily force like a free pop on board and a free body on board. And so if I opened a not great hand, like I couldn't extend very hard, when I made the Caduceus, I would copy the Anuk, or I would just summon the Anuk off of like a search and a special summon of the Deneb, and then I would dump this to make the Caduceus, and then you get a pop right there. So going second, it was nice because it's pretty easy to manipulate it into the graveyard and get that little pop. The 1 Sirius, I didn't like this, didn't use it at all, probably won't play it. I don't know what I'm going to replace it with yet, might just cut it all together. In theory, it makes sense. Oh, you know, I did use it once. Just the shuffle 5 back and draw 1. It can reload the extra deck because you'll burn through that extra deck really fast. And so that is the reason I used it when I did. The draw 1 is okay, but like I said, they're all once per turns, and so you're not really drawing into like an effect you can use again. It's just an extra card, so if you draw into a spell or trap, I guess it's good, but it is what it is. For the Constellars, I'm playing the 1 Sheraton, just searches a Constellar on summon. I've also copied this one with the Caduceus if I don't need the Lyran dump to search the spell, like if I already have the spells in hand. And then the double Caduceus to search with the Sheraton. It can special summon itself from the hand if you control a Constellar. And then when it's on the field, you can search a Constellar, spell, or trap. So in the like main combo, you're going to special summon this and then search the Twinkle to make this a 4, and then overlay it to make the Caduceus. If you ended up not needing it, you just search either Twinkle or Tellarknight, Constellar Tellarknight, and then you can just use that Twinkle to make a Pleiades or something. For some extra extenders here, we've got triple Sakitama. It's an extra normal summon in hand, so if you just open the 1, you reveal it, you get the extra normal summon, and then you have your regular normal summon, and Caduceus is a generic 2 level 4 monsters, or 2+ level 4 monsters. I like this card pretty much all day. The only problem is it's not a Tellarknight, and so it doesn't interact as much with the rest of the extra deck, which kind of sucks in a tough spot, but to get you started, it's great. Then the double Photon Thrasher, just an old school classic, free special summon to start, Cyber Dragon effect. I like it a lot. I won't cut it. I also just really like getting to play the old Astral Pack Ultimate Rares. And then the 1 Renaud for the Ice-Old combo. For hand traps, we went triple Ash Blossom and double Droll. I pretty much sided the Drolls out every game for Nibiru most of the time. If I was going second, if I was going first, I would just side them out for, usually it was back row hate yesterday, but you know, I just didn't keep it very often. I didn't like it all that much. And so I would probably leave this in the side deck and just side it in against decks that it's a lot better against. But the Ash is the Ash, obviously it's a great card, 3 of, left it in all day long. And for the spells, I've got double Constellar Tellarknights. I had it at 3 the night before, and I cut it down to 2 because I didn't think I was going to need 3 of them. And I still don't think I needed 3 of them, but it fixed bad hands a lot. And so either you would play the third so you have a better chance of having the card to fix the bad hand, or what I'll probably end up doing is trying to add some type of draw power in this outside of what it gives you on its own, because it doesn't really give you draw power on its own. It gives you search power. But this was excellent all day long. Best spell on the deck. On activation, it can special summon a Tellarknight from your hand or graveyard, and then it can rank up or down a Constellar or Tellarknight Xyz monster you control into any other rank Constellar or Tellarknight Xyz monster in your extra deck. So there's a lot of different ranks in the extra deck, and so you can make use of that all the time. I use it every turn. I had a game where I opened this plus Deneb and then a bunch of hand traps that I couldn't use going first. And so then the play there was just activate the continuous spell, special the Deneb, search the Anuk, normal the Anuk, dump the Alteran, overlay for Caduceus, special summon the Alteran. Caduceus could then get something back out of the graveyard, and you could copy an effect to get another monster on board or whatever, and now all of a sudden your two not very good cards became something useful. So great card, love it. One Skybridge, this I used a lot more than I thought. I had this at 2 and cut it down to 1. I'd probably still use it at 1 because it locks you into Tellarknight monsters out of the extra deck once you use it, but I was using it a lot more defensively, so I would leave it on board if I had an Xyz monster or just an unprotected like just regular effect monster, main deck effect monster, because a lot of times it's going to be tempted to be hit with removal, and so I can just Skybridge it away. A lot of times I would summon the Altera and then just put the Deltros back on board, so then you got 2 bodies, and the Deltros will just float into another body, and so it can kind of stall out a little bit for you if you just needed to get one more card in your hand. And then the 1 Twinkle for level manipulation. For equipped spells for the Ice Soul, I played the DDR and the Living Fossil. You banish off of the Caduceus, so you usually have a target live for the DDR. The Living Fossil is pretty much just a monster reborn in this deck. I was only playing the Living Fossil at first, but obviously if you draw it, you can no longer do the combo, and that sucks because that was kind of a big part of the extra deck. And so I ended up bumping it up to 2, and it worked out well because although there was one game where I drew both of them, which, you know, they're still good cards on their own, but then that kind of kills your whole Appaloosa play line there. You just had to get to it a different way. The 1 Rhoda, it's a warrior deck. 1 call by and 1 cross out for hand trap hate. This I didn't like very much at all because I was really only main decking the Ash, and I never really saw it when I got Ashed. I got Nibiru'd without having Nibiru in the main deck, and so yeah, I don't know, I'd probably just stick that back on the side and side it in with hand traps. I played Xyz in Trust and full armored Xyz. I did not like this anywhere near as much as I thought. The biggest issue I think is for the Armor Fortress to be live, you need to lay it on top of something with only 1 material to search with. So either you could have played 2 of these, which isn't good, so that you could overlay it on something more frequently and without having to like warp the way you play around it, or, you know, when the spell comes out in Maze, you just play that. This does not count as a search target because it's not an Armored Xyz spell or trap. The only reason I played it is because it has that level manipulation effect, so it can make up to 2 monsters, both level 3 or both level 5. And we play like Pleiades in the extra deck, so you could use this to make the Pleiades instead of the Constellar Twinkle, and it searches the trap. So you could use the Pleiades to bounce on your turn, set the trap, pass, bounce on their turn. It's now empty. I activate the trap, make the Dark Lancer, and then you have the trap loaded up in Grave to get the little steal effect. I will not be playing this anymore ever again. If I were to play the full armored stuff again, I would just wait for the spell to come out. But these and the 2 armored Xyz extra deck monsters are getting cut for sure. And then double Imperm, just great hand trap. For the extra deck, we got double Caduceus. It's your main starter. When it's summoned, it can take a Tellarknight, a Constellar, 1 of each or both card from your graveyard and put them back in your hand, so it can reload you if you had to play through a couple of other cards to get to it to start. And then its best effect is that you can detach a material, then banish a Tellarknight from your deck, and then copy its effect. So you could get any 1 Tellarknight monster's effect twice if you wanted it. Which one I copied kind of depended on the situation, so it's really flexible. It's nice to have that choose your own adventure effect. The 1 Deltros, because it's not once per turn, so you can just loop it over and over and over again to keep putting extra deck monsters out. The 1 Triever, I did use this once, and it is really nice when it works. On summon, it bounces the whole board, so it can reset all of your Constellar Tellarknights too, so you use... It acts as a monster reborn when you activate it, so if I use them both, I can just bounce them both, and then I have those monster reborns back in my hand, so that was nice. And then detach 1 to rip a random card out of your opponent's hand. That is also really cool, so I'll be keeping that. Got the 1 Ptolemaeus. I use this for a lot of different things to rank up into the Constellar Diamond as just a rank 4 to get to the Pleiades with the Constellar Tellarknights. And when I was siding in Eradicator, I was using it as kind of a distraction, so I would leave the 2, add the 3rd material in the end phase so that they think I'm trying to rank it up into something else, and then leave the Dark Monster on board. And then they'd be more worried about what I'm going to do with this and not so much what I'm doing with the Dark Monster, because its effect is kind of the same but also not nearly as good. And so Eradicator, pop the Dark guy, and win pretty much. And then we've got the 1 Constellar Diamond. It didn't do as much work as I had hoped. A lot of decks aren't playing just Dark Monsters, at least not the ones I played against. The one that was playing a lot of Dark Monsters was also playing the Adventure package, so they were able to clear this out really easily. I will say though that the most useful aspect of this is I got hit with a There Can Only Be One, and this is a worm. And I actually got super lucky because the Constellar main deck monsters are Beast and Spellcaster. Your Tellarknights are all warriors. This is a worm. These are all warriors, but this is a spellcaster. And so I got really lucky with that being the case, so it was handy in that instance. I needed that. For the Constellars, we've got the 1 M7 and the 1 Pleiades. I use these a bunch. I loved them all day long. This, you can just rank up the Caduceus with its own effect, and then rank it back down into Deltaros with the Constellar Tellarknights, so that was really useful. If you were to rank up into this with the Constellar Tellarknights, it gets its effect to bounce. It doesn't have to wait like it would if you used its own effect to make it. So you could go Pleiades, detach 1, bounce, use the Tellarknight to rank up, bounce again. You could rank up something else, like just good all day. Also, having this in the graveyard with the Armored Xyz stuff made a really easy choice for that 2700 attack boost. We got the 2 Armored Xyz stuff. I kind of already talked about this. I didn't like it nearly as much as I thought. I'll probably try it again once we get the spell card in, I think it's in January. But for now, these are coming out, and I'll probably end up playing F-Zero because in any instance where I could summon these, a lot of times it was off the Gaga Gaga Magician. Once you do that, the reason I was doing it is because you could make this detach 1 and summon an Xyz monster out of the graveyard that has no material, and then you can lay this on top. But in that instance, I could just make the F-Zero, and it is so much more powerful, and so I'll probably just replace this with F-Zero and Utopic Draco F-Zero. We got 1 Dweller. I didn't use it at all. I ended up siding it out a lot of times. And the 1 Zeus, also didn't use it, but I think that I should have used it. There were games where I left the Tellarknights on board expecting to be able to use them for something in the following turn, and then they just get cleared, and I would have been better off just dropping the Zeus and blowing the board up and starting over. And then the 1 I sold on the 1 Appaloosa, pretty solid standard cards for this deck. The side deck here, I think, won a lot of the games I ended up winning. I played the 1 Alsam. This was just supposed to be for time. The one game that I actually went to time, I didn't side this in beforehand, because it was, it's a whole thing. I'll tell you the story when we get to that part of the video. There was another game that I thought I was going to end up going into time, so I sided it in. The idea being that you can copy it with Caduceus. So it's pretty easy to make the Caduceus, detach, banish this to copy, burn for 1,000, and that's game. But the one time I sided it in, I opened it and no other extenders, and so I lost that game. Got the triple Nibiru. I sided this in a lot, got to use it, I think, twice. Obviously, great card. I played the 1 Feather Duster and triple Cosmic Cyclone for back row decks. Really, I don't think, I didn't like the Cyclones that much. A lot of times I was only siding in 2, so I didn't need this one. And I think this could have been something else, because I was really only using these for if I was going second against a back row deck. And so I probably would have rather just had the double Lightning Storms, take the 3 Cyclones out, and, you know, play something else in there. Got the 3rd Imperm, never used it, probably just clear that space up for something else. I've got the double Stellar Nova Alpha. I wasn't sure if I wanted to play this one. I ended up not siding it at all. I could probably main deck 1 just to see how I like it next week, but ultimately I didn't side it in, so I don't have any further comments about this. And then this was the MVP. I got the 1 Batlamius and triple Eradicator, and so I would just side this in against really back row heavy decks. I got to use it one time, and the one time I got to use it, it absolutely annihilated a true Draco deck. I would absolutely keep this. I still wouldn't main this just because I don't want to give up the space. Like, you use most of your extra deck in most games that you don't just get blown out right away, and so I'd probably keep it in the side, but I love this a lot.
Alright, so this is just kind of a preliminary idea of some of the changes I was going to make. I ended up just replacing Droll with Veiler, just more effect negation. You can always side it out. The side deck here, I bumped cross out to 2. Idea being that once I've established what hand traps I'm trying to play around, especially if I'm going, well, I guess it doesn't matter, first or second, in game 2 you could just side these in with those hand traps, and then hopefully you have a little bit more of an answer rather than just getting stopped right away. I would say at best, like in a good hand, you probably have 2 ways to start, and so if they negate the first one, you probably have a second. A lot of decks can set up more than 2 interruptions or can open more than 2 interruptions and hand traps. And so I'm just trying to adjust my way around that. We switched out the Cosmic Cyclones for Lightning Storms. And then as far as the draw power goes, I tried to play a few test hands on here really quick just to see how I liked Pot of Desires, just because we're playing a lot of multiples and the effects are once per turn, and so if we can set up a really strong board but lose out on a couple extra copies of these cards, I thought it was good. It is not good. There are way too many one-ofs that you kind of need. The Sheraton is a nice one-of to have, even if you're banishing it off of Caduceus for the search. You need it to get to the other Caduceus. Losing the Renault would mean you no longer have access to that combo line with Isold to get to the Appaloosa, so you lose a lot of extending power off of like 1 or 2 cards in your hand. You can't really play Prosperity in this deck, or Extravagance, but you wouldn't do that anyway. But Prosperity specifically, even if you can pick the cards you need, you are easily going to burn through this entire extra deck in like 2 turns or so if all of your stuff is going off, and so you can't, like, it's all really fairly necessary. You can't really start losing pieces because a lot of them are what like gives you the interchange off of the rank change effect of Tellarknight Constellar. And there's just not really that many other good draw cards in the deck. You can't play Card of Demise because we play all monsters. And so I ended up just going with the Upstart Goblin 39 card deck, you know, whatever. Couldn't really figure out a way around that. Maybe you got a better idea. In the extra deck, we cut the Abyss Dweller. I added in the Nightmare Unicorn, especially after 2 turns. For sure after 2 turns, sometimes even after 1. It's easy to have like enough extenders to put a bunch of bodies on board, and then you just don't really have the extra deck monsters to make anymore because you use so many of them already. So unless you can recycle them off of the Sirius, which I did end up leaving in there for that reason, you need something that you can make with them that is usable. So the Unicorn's in there. I wanted to try to squeeze an IP in there also, at which point if you had the SP, you just play the SP here instead, but I certainly do not. But there really isn't room to fit 1 more card in. I think I need all of this stuff. Maybe you could take the Zeus out for the IP. I guess we'll see how this goes in the coming weeks. But that's the Unicorn in there. And then I took out the Armoric Z stuff to make room for the F-Zeros. It's just really easy. I got a replay for you. You can look at a test hand after this. It's so easy to just kind of like meander your way into an F-Zero. I think I got F-Zero and Appaloosa off of a kind of a weird opening hand. And so I like this way better already. As far as my matchups went, if you're interested at all, round 1, played against Dragonlink, got 0-2'd, got absolutely demolished. Game 1, I went first. I won the dice roll every round, actually, which I didn't expect at all. Going first, he just had negates. I only had the 1 starter in the Deneb, and I got stopped. Back row, I don't think I had much of anything. It was... I think I had a lot of the spells that I couldn't really use for anything unless I had other ways to get the deck rolling. And so game 1 gone like that. Game 2 going first again, got to the Caduceus and they negated it once I tried to copy the effect. It is what it is. I was totally fine with leaving the Caduceus on board and passing. I had the Nibiru in hand. I figured I'll just drop the Nibiru. I think I already had something in hand to try to make another Caduceus next turn. The main issue was that they're playing the Bysteals, and so once he started taking stuff out of my graveyard, even after I dropped the Nibiru, he just kept Bystealing stuff out of my graveyard. You need the graveyard to be able to interact with for a lot of this to work, and so I just kind of ran out of gas quickly, and that was the end of that. Round 2 was a weird one. I played against a guy who had just started playing the game, kinda. It seemed like he kind of knew how to play the game, but this was his first tournament for sure. And so the first game took like almost the entire round, and a lot of it was when he played something, he didn't really know how to explain to me what the cards did. I wasn't really sure because he was playing a branded, it was like a 3 structure deck branded deck with some upgrades from like 10 cards. And so I was trying to read all of his stuff and try to like help him understand like, hey, this is this and this is doing that. And whenever I would make a play, I would stop and try to explain like, hey, I'm playing this because I want to search this, and the goal of searching this is to do this, this, and this. And you know, if you have a hand trap, you probably want to hit it right here or whatever. Just trying to be helpful. And so not only did the first game take forever, I also was losing track of what I was even doing because I'd play something and then it'd be like a 5 or 10 minute conversation about how, you know, hey, this is how this works, and here's how timing works, and here's how the chain resolves. And so I didn't mind it. You know, it's always good helping a new player get into the game, but I definitely played super sloppy, and not that it would have been, like, it would have just been shitty to just not help him at all, you know, but I won the first game. The second game we went to time and ended up a draw, and so I won off of the first game. Whatever. 1-1 going into round 3. Round 3 played against True Draco. First game I got killed by there can only be one. I always get the order of the words in that card's name confused. I even was lucky enough to have like the most ideal hand possible for trying to play through that floodgate. As Sheraton's a beast, Caduceus is a spellcaster. These are all warriors. The extra decks, we got spellcasters, mostly warriors, a worm, you know, fairy. So there is some stuff you can do as long as I can keep using these to keep the different types on board. But once I got a couple special summons into it, I just didn't have, like, all of my extenders became just warriors. Like, I couldn't keep recycling these. And so I kind of got stopped like halfway through trying to figure out how to build a board. Ended up losing on the next turn. Side decked in my Eradicators and my Batalamius and my, at the time, Cyclones and Feather Duster. Going first, opened the Eradicator plus a very easy Batalamius, set it all up and passed. And he kept reading the Batalamius like, I don't understand why you're passing on this. Like, what are you going to do with this? He goes, flipped the Eradicator, call traps, and he ended up losing pretty much all of his hand. I think he had like a monster and a spell left, maybe 2 spells. Everything he drew was traps. I think he drew 1 spell at some point over the next couple turns. He ended up using a Time-Tearing Morganite to draw 2. Draws into 2 evenly matches, which would have been a problem for me, except they're gone now because of Eradicator. And so he was quite unhappy about it, but he was still really cool about it. It's just, this card is shitty. I wouldn't be surprised if it got taken away from us. Game 3, I'm going second. I open the Feather Duster plus a decent enough amount of gas. He passes on not a really strong board. Feather Duster, clear it all. He went a little nuts with the extra deck, and that was game right there. So side deck saved me big time there. Absolutely sacked him with the Feather Duster. Don't feel bad about it one bit. It is what it is, right? That's my win of the day right there. And then round 4, I was kind of in a rush to get to work. Not that I would have won otherwise. I got starts pretty bad. I was against a Phantom Knight Burning Abyss Adventure Horus deck. So I had no idea what this thing was even trying to do. I had never really seen such a combination of cards. I was going first blind, and so I just took a gamble on setting up the diamond, hoping that I'd be able to negate some dark monsters. I was assuming that it might be some form of like Bysteel or something like that again. It was not, and so this got pretty easily removed with the adventure stuff. I even tried to Skybridge this away when they attempted to bounce it, and then put an Altair on board to summon out the Deltros just to have a little bit of a wall. And my Altair got negated, I don't remember by what. And so that was a loss. And then game 2, going first again, I bricked unbelievably hard. So that first game took probably 25 minutes. The guy's first combo took a very long time, and I was going first. So my thought was, if I can set up a decent board of negates, let him go, by the time that his turn ended, we would be pretty close to time. So then I would just use the Caduceus to copy the Alsum to burn for game if we ended up making it that far. So I opened up Alsum, the continuous spell, an Eradicator, the Xyz trap card that is not in here anymore, and then I think like a Call by the Grave. So what that means is I had no extenders. All I could do is activate, special, burn for 1,000 right out the gate, set my Eradicator with no targets, set my full armored Xyz with no targets, and set a Call by the Grave, and there's nothing worth negating anyway. I could have taken something out of the graveyard, but there was just nothing. I was gonna, like, he had opened, I don't know if he opened really good or the deck is just really consistent, but it wouldn't have mattered if I had taken something out of his graveyard. He just kept going and going, and so I bricked so hard I got my ass beat, and that was the end of that. 2-2, off to work. But hey, it felt good being back in there. I'm looking forward to going back next week. I think the F-Zero is going to guide me to victory. I should win it all and then probably go win a YCS and then Worlds after that. So that's my plan in the next couple weeks here. Happy deck building. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Goodbye.